Michael, good morning. We've already seen over a dozen train incidents since the start of the year, and early Tuesday morning, a train carrying coal in Nebraska, the third time in that spot in the past. So that got us thinking, what do the numbers look like across the country? Well, you may be surprised to find out there were over 800 deaths in 2022, 818 to be exact. But when it comes specifically to hazardous materials being transported, 450 train cars carrying dangerous goods.
The year is 2023. Every iron, every mirror on the wall reports a train jump rails. Some of those events are more tragic than the others. The lives are lost or threatened. When nothing happens, with the exception of the material damage to the tracks and the rolling stock. As you can see, yet another train went off track. The social media experts who went through the unique experience of becoming virologists and transferred to military advisors created a viral wave about the new dangers to the United States' well-being. Intentional sabotage of the central logistics infrastructure, the railroad. Today, I would like to start by looking into the situation. To begin to analyze this situation, we need to look back at history. Most of you have heard that the railroads made America. I personally believe that this is true. The railroad was the prime mover of goods and the main communication line onto which the new lands were threaded. Our folklore is full of stories based on the railroad development and the expansion of the country's frontiers. Railroads played a vital role in uniting the coast, defining the strategy during the period of war, and creating and destroying financial wealth. Most long-living financial institutions like Wells Fargo and American Express begin their history with railroads. The history of U.S. railroads, from transport empires to financial turmoil by 1980, is a tale of both grandeur and decline, with the government playing a significant role in shaping the industry's trajectory. During the late 19th and early 20th century, American railroads were the backbone of the nation's economic growth, connecting vast territories, fueling industrialization, and facilitating the movement of people and goods. At their zenith, these railroads were sprawling empires, and they played a pivotal role in the westward expansion and economic development of the United States. However, by the mid-20th century, railroads began facing stiff competition from other modes of transportation, such as automobiles, trucks, and airplanes. This once dominant railroad struggled to adapt to these changing dynamics, leading to financial challenges and even bankruptcy for some major rail carriers. The government's role in this transformation is multifaceted. In the early 20th century, the government played a regulatory role through agencies like the Interstate Commerce Commission, ICC, to ensure fair practices and rates. However, regulation sometimes hindered the railroad's ability to adapt to changing markets and compete effectively. The Staggers Rail Act of 1980 marked a turning point as it shifted the approach from heavy-handed regulation to deregulation. This landmark legislation allowed railroads greater flexibility in setting rates, discontinuing unprofitable routes, and negotiating contracts with shippers. Deregulation encouraged cost-cutting and efficiency improvements, leading to financial stability and the modernization of the industry. Some railroads successfully embraced these changes and thrived, while others struggled or went bankrupt. Ultimately, the government's regulatory approach evolved over time, contributing both to the rise and fall of the U.S. railroads as transport empires. In the early 2000s, the US railroads started to receive significant private funding, which signaled a new life for industry. The private sector finally decided that the deregulation reached the state where business risk models will find it interesting to develop railroading as a business once more. What happened? The start of 2023 was a peculiar moment for those who reside in the United States. The forceful economic shutdown was fully lifted, and the new proxy war was raging, forcing the world economies of Europe and Asia into significant change since the formation of the European Union. The list of events made known to the public by social and public media includes multiple truckers' political statements, fallen airplanes, disregard for safety and the right to live, increased crime rates, and multiple riots. The receptors of people overloaded with fear. On February 3rd, 2023, 38 Norfolk Southern freight train cars carrying hazardous materials derailed in East Palestine, Ohio, United States. Several rail cars burned for more than 2 days, with emergency crews then conducting a controlled burn of several rail cars, which released hydrogen chloride and phosgen into the air. On March 4th, 2023, another Norfolk Southern train derailed near Springfield, Ohio, but it was not transporting any hazardous chemicals. On September 9, 2023, a northbound train derailed in Anderson County, Kansas, just west of US 169 at approximately milepost 103. It is unclear what caused the derailment or if anyone on board was injured. A simple search on the internet can bring up more similar events. As early as February of 2023, activists on social media started to question the high number and the profile of the incidents associated with the railroads in the United States. The main focus of such statements is the number, which is surprisingly high. Here are some numbers collected from the Department of Transportation, Federal Railroad Administration, American Association of the Railroads, and various state agencies. Later in my research, I found that the online resource Statico has a user-friendly aggregated report with the same information. This is the number of incidents that occurred on the US railroads by year. The number does fluctuate, but 2023 is a good year for them. Well, and here is another number for you. The number of fatalities associated with the incidents on railroads countrywide. As you can see, the number's average is pretty stable. As we said before, the railroads in the United States suffered for a long time and only started their recovery. What does it mean to the logistics of the country, and what are the risks associated with the recent events? Here are the percentage of freight being moved by different types of transportation. Trucks, 39.6%, by rail, 27.9%, pipeline, 17.5%, multiple modes, 7.8%, water, 6.9%, air, 0.1%. Now thy image doth appear in the rare semblance that I love at first. For decades, the public media and the latest social media creators exercised one simple rule: a loud title attracts attention. The hyperbolic, exaggerated focus on the event provides attention. 1966, the story of the Mothman. 1938, and the Orson Welles and his live radio show based on the War of the Worlds. It seems that in dark times, everyone seeks attention, and a new topic is needed. This year, it was all about railroads. Today, Technology allows information in an unlimited amount. The information we would not pay attention to 20 years ago is forced upon us regardless of our desire. As soon as the loud headlines appeared, more of the local people started seeing and reporting things otherwise not noticed before. Some say that events of the year brought up a concern about the safety of the aging and heavily abused old rail infrastructure in the United States. With the introduction of modern technology in monitoring both the rolling stock and the tracks, the overall safety increased. And we saw the table from the Department of Transportation to prove it. The number of incidents has decreased roughly by 31% since the year 2000. What would you say if I told you that in the last 5 years, Class 1 railroads in the US spent around $23 billion each year on upgrades and infrastructure replacement? This number totals at $730 billion since the 1980 Staggers Act. I remind you that railroads, in its majority, are privately owned, and their focus is to generate revenue. All the money spent have not a single penny from the taxpayers. Incidents like in February 2023 cause long-term damage to private businesses and hardly fit the risk model of any multi-billion-dollar company. The incidents still occur. And some of them send justified fear, especially to those who are affected by the events. You may ask me, if you say that railroads spend money on safety and things are better, why do events like the one near East Palestine still occur? I cannot answer anything but what is written in the official report. But I always encourage you to ask questions before repeating someone's thoughts, including mine. Does Norfolk Southern spend enough on the infrastructure maintenance and upgrades? I cannot know. But I can speculate that the company has to balance its expenses and choose its battles to stay in business and efficiently operate in the constant growth of the freight load. Were any of those events an act of sabotage? We do not know, but as of today, there are no official reports that ruled any incident on the record as an act of sabotage. People in general are their own worst enemies. The condition of the person, the mood, the changed state of mind, laziness, all that could be contributing factors to events like the one in East Palestine and others all over the country. There was an episode on Vice addressing the very same issue, where the show brought up witnesses allegedly working for the railroads, claiming that the requirements for the track maintenance are unreal and negligence is inevitable. The witness in the clip claims that no matter what the railroads do, they only focus on cutting costs. I personally find it hard to believe that the loss of billions of dollars in assets, compensations, and fines can be justified by not adding an additional crew to complete the track check on time. Meanwhile, the events of 2023 were used to start the conversation about introducing the new federal regulations over the railroads. As Sherlock Holmes liked to say, look for the motive. Look for those who benefit the most. Railroads today may be free from federal regulations in their selection of sales, strategy, and the choice of technology, but most of the services are still forced to go through labor unions. The role of labor unions in the US railroad industry has been a subject of debate and contention, with some arguing that unions have at times hindered the industry's ability to adapt and grow. Labor unions representing the interests of railroad workers have historically been strong advocates for job security, fair wages, and safe working conditions. While these concerns are undoubtedly significant, critics contend that the rigid work rules and labor agreements negotiated by unions have sometimes made it difficult for railroads to adapt in changing market dynamics. One of the key criticisms is that labor unions have resisted certain efficiency measures that could help railroads operate effectively. For example, stringent work rules governing crew sizes and operating practices can increase labor costs and limit a railroad's ability to streamline operations. In addition, lengthy negotiations between unions and management can slow decision-making process, potentially impeding the industry's ability to respond swiftly to market shifts. It's important to note that the relationship between railroads and unions is complex. However, railroads in the United States lagging behind their counterparts worldwide are still the cheapest and the most economical way to transport goods. Despite the lack of electrification of the tracks, this is still the most nature-friendly way to haul heavy loads long distances. Let us not fall for appealing headlines, control our emotions, and remember, always ask questions.